Hi. Mike. Right.
Sorry, we missed you earlier.
Yeah, I didn't think I was gonna be good. I'll get this update.
Yeah, I missed part of it. I can't get here before 6 really, unless I'm working from home.
Do you do that on a regular basis, or are they hybrid with Zoom? And
It is
office?
hybrid, yeah. Unfortunately, though, it's limited to how many days a week I can do that. Or I can work from home.
Right.
But at least J&J's a little bit more flexible than Merck. Yes, yes. Making some gene therapy.
You got quite the desk here.
Well, this was given to me. It's not following.
Okay.
I'm gonna work on that after I've been there a while. Yep. My manager actually sits in New Jersey, so the department's a little bit spread out.
Call to order. Everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
What is it?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America.
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to the Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisor regular meeting, May 10th, 2022. Just as an announcement, tonight's Board of Supervisor meeting is being recorded. First up, we have receipt of the minutes. Has everyone gotten a chance to look at the April 26th minutes?
Yes.
If we could table the minutes, we had some responses from the board after reviewing the minutes, and we'd just like to look over them again. So if we could just table them till the next meeting, that would be wonderful.
Okay, to have before me a motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Minutes are tabled. Next up, we have a land development presentation by Precision Watches.
Evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see you. Krista Pianzio from Hamburg Group and Nolan Maxwell Music. Sorry, you should hold it good first. They can't hear it. They can't hear your mind. Hi, good evening. I'm Kristen Pianzio from Hamburg, Rubin, Mullen, Maxwell, and Lupin. I'm here tonight to talk to you about Precision Watches, which is something that we've talked about a long time ago, and we're finally here for preliminary final approval. I have with me Tim Woodrow from Woodrow Engineers and Roman Murat, the owner of these Precision Watches, who's looking very forward to moving to Lower Gwinnett in his signature building, which is proposed at the intersection of 63 and Route 309. I have for you some slides that we showed you a long time ago. If you remember, this application went to the zoning hearing board back in 2021, actually about this time of year, last year, asking for relief. We had a use variance, we had an impervious coverage variance, we had a height issue, a building size issue, and we're straddling the property line with our neighbor. We're buying this corner. It's called Gwinnett Point. The owner of the property owns the adjacent Gwinnett Gate. So we have a cross-access easement with them to share access off the existing driveway on Welsh Road. There's a new access off of 309, a shared ingress and egress across the two lots. So we've been working well together with the owner of the property who's selling it to my client for this development. The variances also include, so we have a setback issue for that straddled line, parking spaces and signage. So this is the first slide of what we showed you a year ago. The interior of this building is very high end. We're talking about the kind of watch store that doesn't have a lot of traffic. This is a destination kind of place. That's why it's perfect at the point to have that visibility with the low traffic, because it's a tricky intersection, as you all know. Next slide, please. Next slide. These are just interior fit outs. I don't need to bore you with all this. This was the slide showing you the corner. It was important to this board and also to the zoning hearing board and the planning commission that this building be something spectacular, since it's the entrance to Lower Gwinnett. You asked us to look down to Springhouse at that new development, incorporate those features, which we did. This was just a sample of what was in the area. Next slide, please, Jamie. So these are pictures of the Springhouse. We brought in the stone, the pitch of the roof, the dormers, the glass, and incorporated that in our building. And it's being customized by an architect out of New York City. These were the slides showing the various views from the intersection in black and white version. Hopefully the color comes next. Okay, great. So this is where we superimpose the building. This is a view coming south on Route 309, approaching the intersection. The building is there, sort of in the center of the picture, a little off to the left. Next slide. This is a closer shot as you're going through the intersection, gazing left. Next shot. This is the entrance along 309 North. This is a right turn in, a right in, right out, or just right in, right, Tim? Just right in, going north on Route 309. We got rid of the right out because of the conflict with the right turn onto Welsh Road, but this is the view of the building from that perspective. And next, this is the shared corner. We are, the line, as you see on the plan, divides the point. This is the property line. So some of our parking is on Gwinnett Gate, which is why we have an easement for that. And this is the shared access. We are replacing some parking spaces on Gwinnett Gate, so they have a net even amount of parking spaces. They're losing 4, we're putting 4 back. So that's all part of this land development process. So having been through the zoning hearing board, they did grant all the relief. They're holding us to the architectural design, all of which is fine with us. We went to the Planning Commission in December. We have review letters from all of your consultants. Everything is a will comply, but for the waivers. The waivers I have here in letter format, which is what I'd like to discuss with you if there's no questions thus far.
So I have a question. When you say the architecture will be held to what the either the zoning hearing or the planning committee
Yes.
asked, that is the picture that you just showed, or are there changes to be incorporated?
There are no changes. What you saw is what we presented to the zoning board.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a signed easement agreement.
Not yet. It's in the hands of we lawyers going back and forth, but it's clearly, it was part of the recommendation from the planning commission. I think you were still in the planning commission at that time. Yeah, so definitely we can't move forward without it. So the parties are still going back and forth on some of the terms.
So what does approval from us do if you don't get an easement?
Nothing.
I'm sure you. I mean, everything's contingent on an easement agreement.
Absolutely. Just like our PennDOT permit and our outside agency permits. Yeah, would be a condition of approval for sure. So I've handed to you our waiver request letter. There are 6 waivers. If it's okay, I'd like to go through them. Okay, the first one has to do with, actually the first and second have to do with landscaping, the interior landscaping, and the second one has to do with parking shade trees. We don't have a lot of room on this site. It is a tight corner. Instead of the trees that are required as far as the landscaping, we are trying to replace them with shrubs and perennials that will be beautiful, beautify the site, but give us the room to plant something that will thrive as opposed to the trees for which we have no room.
Have you thought about vines
Vines?
on the side of the building?
I don't think we did think about vines, did we, Tim?
It's another way to add greenery to the space to make it look less austere. Go ahead.
Okay, so they're the first two. The second one has to do with sidewalks. Your code requires sidewalks along frontages of all roads. I think the planning commission saw the wisdom, as did your consultants, that putting sidewalks here not only would not connect to anything, but would be utterly dangerous to bring pedestrians down to this intersection. So that's why the waiver is there. Last has to do with, I'm sorry, fourth has to do with the parking not being closer to 15 feet to the outside wall of the building. I think we have 8 feet, Tim, 8 feet for that separation. That's a common waiver. I think you've seen it before. Number 5 has to do with an off-street loading facility. We don't have a loading situation like you would see at a retail establishment like a Target or a shopping center where we have a tractor trailer sitting for a long period of time. Roman tells us most of his deliveries come by a UPS or a FedEx, so it would be quick in and out, so we don't need a designated loading facility. And lastly, has to do with tree replacement. I think this is the first time ever I've come to Lower Gwynedd with the removal of 1 tree, not more. So it is one of those evergreens. If you've been by the site, there's some really big evergreens that border the 2 lots in that back corner. We do have to take 1 down. It's an 8-inch tree, so we owe you 8 inches of tree replacement, and I'm hoping I can work that out with your solicitor with some sort of donation, either in kind or a fee in lieu thereof. So that is the list. We do appear before you with the recommendation from your planning commission. They had some comments that included the cross-access easement, like I mentioned, the architectural features remaining a condition as they're already memorialized in the zoning hearing board decision. They asked us to investigate the left turn in off of Welsh Road. That is an existing condition and part of that driveway permit. We don't see any change. We did discuss that with the traffic engineer. We are under permit review by PennDOT. So PennDOT has the run of the show here for our ingress and egress. And we did discuss it with the traffic engineer. We don't foresee that changing, but it's up to PennDOT.
On the 4th waiver, what is there any barrier bollards?
Bollards?
Is that what it is? Yeah,
The pole
bollards,
things?
or is there any, since you're going from 15 to 8, is there anything on the edge parking, right?
Oh, from the building, the
Yeah.
parking to the building. Mhm.
Is there any sort of
Oh, I see.
protection?
From the cars
Yeah.
hopping the curb and hitting the building. That's what you're looking for.
We have not proposed any at this time.
Okay.
We're relying on that curb to provide that protection.
Do you happen to have a before picture that was the original proposed building as opposed to what it is proposed to be now?
I do not have that to put on the screen. I personally would like to not relive that building. I think most people in Lower Gwynedd felt that that was not suitable for Lower Gwynedd. And so
Okay.
we quickly moved to a more Lower Gwynedd type building and moved down to Spring House to get those architectural features from that shopping center.
Okay, so you added stone cladding, you added a steeper pitched roof, you,
Yes, dormers.
The original building had a flat roof, very modern, a lot of metal. And so the building that was built with these conversations came down in scale, created its roof, created its dormers, all itself. And that was fairly well discussed with the architect as well as I think with the building committee. I think we showed the building committee a number of options.
I have some of the details.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a standing seam metal roof, which is neutral in color, neutral earth tone brick facade, warm limestone facade, clear glazing glass, dormers with facade steps down at the point side, colonial Penfield stone, a feature tower inspired by the Spring House Village Center, awnings with plantings above. So they were the changes that
There are vines.
they do look like vines growing out of those boxes.
See, you didn't even have to think about it. You
And
already.
look at
had
that,
it.
we're so smart.
Yes.
Yeah, we're excited. We think this came a long way. We had many meetings with the Building and Zoning Committee, with your staff. The architect just kept going back and back, and I think we really landed on something that brings in all those features of Lower Gwinnett.
It might be helpful for Tessie to just give the background of the architect. He's pretty reputable outfit out
Yeah.
of New York,
Um,
or maybe Roman can.
Alex's credentials, what kind of stuff he's done. Think Rodeo Drive, think Fifth Avenue, New York, very high-end,
Mhm.
very expensive, very modern, sleek. So I think that's how he approached this job as well, but it
Yeah.
was a little too modern and sleek, I think, for this neighborhood.
Yeah, I actually like modern sleek.
It looked like a gold cube, Tessie. That's the best way
I
to describe it.
probably would have loved it.
You might have. I could get it to you after the
I am,
meeting.
I'm not such a fan of colonial style, but it does look very Lower Gwynish, I guess. I compliment you on the changes that have been made from
Thank
that
you.
perspective. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Are there any additional questions from the board? No? No? Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'd like to work with Neil between this meeting and next to get a resolution together for your consideration.
Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Next up, we have authorization for a township solicitor to provide a position on the zoning hearing board application on Meadow Creek Circle for safety concerns. Just, I guess, a brief background. There was a submission for our zoning hearing board. It came to the B and Z committee. The two supervisors on the B and Z committee, the vice chair and myself, had some concerns around the additional driveway that was going to be placed on Dagger Road that did not previously exist, historically has not been there. We wanted to bring it to the entire board for consideration, to have our solicitors provide a position. And that position could be provided in person or via letter, and I'll let Neil kind of give additional clarification.
Yeah, I think there's another issue too, besides the second driveway, and that is the living space is intended to be in an accessory structure. It's not part of the main house. According to our zoning code, the zoning officer isn't here, but according to my reading of the zoning code, you can't use an accessory structure for living space of any type unless it's a caretaker's residence, and this property would not meet the minimum requirements for a caretaker's residence. In-law suites are, for the most part, intended to be within the main structure and not an accessory structure. So I have a concern as to whether the application's even been properly filed.
Neil, that issue would also impact the 1105 McKean Road application, wouldn't it? That's a separate, it's a separate structure where the in-law suite is up top. Remember, that's the garage.
I thought that was not for living. No, it
Yeah,
wasn't.
that was not
It
living
wasn't for-
space.
It wasn't an
not
in-law
for
suite,
living.
it was just a separate structure.
So I'm sorry, can you back up on this property? Why are we discussing it? They came to the zoning hearing board to get,
So they made an application to the zoning hearing board for relief. We, as the board, have the ability, because they're a separate semi-judicial entity, to either oppose if we choose to, and to send our solicitor on our behalf, anything before the zoning hearing board. So we need to make a decision as an entire board, whether we would like to send our solicitor, or if we don't have any objection, and allow the zoning hearing board to proceed without our input.
I see.
So the initial concern was the additional driveway coming out on Dagger Road, but Neil has brought out additional concern, which is the living space, or this separate structure being used as a living space.
So what, I'm sorry, Danielle.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. What is the separate space? Is
I don't know
that
what
the
it's
dark
labeled up
brown?
there. It's around,
It's the top.
so this is what it looks like. But on that map, it was like around the
You
end.
go, it's up at the top.
So it's over, so the extra space, so-called in-law suite or something is on top of the garage?
So the
Correct.
G and the H is the new
Okay.
driveway that would come out
Okay.
on Digger Road. Right now, the driveway is MHA and it comes out on Meadow Creek. So they
Okay.
would have that new driveway on Dagger Road and then the N and the O kind of surrounded in a triangle. That would be the new structure.
Okay, I got it.
And the existing driveway would remain.
Correct.
It would be two.
So they would have two driveways.
One getting to the new structure and the other just sort of getting to the property.
Correct. So Mike and I had enough concern that we kind of wanted to bring it to the entire board for us all to weigh in to decide if this was something we were in support of, or we wanted our solicitor to take a position.
I have a question.
Yes,
Have the applicants been notified of potential opposition by the township?
because we don't have the potential. They
Yes.
have been?
They have it, yes.
Okay.
The solicitor of the zoning hearing board has reached out to their attorney.
Just as a courtesy in case they
courtesy,
decide
just
to
in case.
withdraw? Did they withdraw?
The response that we got is that they're still going to move forward with the application.
Okay.
So it sounds like there's two issues. One, whether it's even permitted, and two, if it is permitted, do we want to allow it given the
Yes.
access on Dayton Road? And one thing that we talked about is whether we could have them, before we realized it wasn't permitted, whether they would agree to not have the access on Dayton Road in exchange for the special use. But that obviously has changed. If it's not permitted, it's just not permitted. Then they'd have to seek a variance, right?
Yes,
Yeah. Which is not what they're seeking.
no,
They're just speaking of special.
they're treating it as a special exception, as an in-law suite.
So I guess I would want to know what's the recommendation of our solicitor.
Well, I would defer to the experts when it comes to a second means of access to the property. I think that's a bad idea. And clearly, if you wanted to set up a situation where this could, in the future, be used as an apartment or something other than an in-law suite, it's perfectly arranged that way. So I have a concern about that as well. But the ordinance clearly was not written to allow for living space over an accessory structure unless, as I said, it's a caretaker's residence. At least that's my interpretation of the ordinance.
What is wrong with having two driveways other than it sets up the property to have Airbnb or something in the future?
I think the concern is this particular driveway, if you look, so it's basically, there's a stop sign right at Meadow Creek. And there's a lot of vegetation right on Dayton Road, their property and beyond their property. So when you're making the right out of here, you got this driveway that nobody's ever had before. No stop sign or anything in front of G. And there's a couple driveways down the road,
Uh-huh.
further down towards Headland
Penland.
Pike. So it'd be one thing if it was landlocked, or they didn't have a driveway. This isn't that. They just want another driveway. And I think it's dangerous to put them right out on Dayton Road.
And it's also, the right-hand turn is also approaching the summit, the highest
That's
elevation
what I
of
was gonna
Dagger
say.
Road, which presents the real danger, part of the danger.
I don't,
Plus, it's right across from the school, on top of that. I mean, it's on
Yeah.
everything.
and the trail, which we have issues with people kind of crossing the trail, but I, just from my perception, I drive down Big Road frequently, it appears that there's a lot of space between that new driveway and the next driveway, or the next even property. But driving down it, there's not, like, the property's almost like right there. And that residence is, it's right there. I just feel like having somebody come out at that point of the road. I'm not Mr. Dixon. I don't have a traffic engineering background. It just seems like that might not be the safest course for them to take.
I
So
agree.
we could, I think, Mike, you mentioned this, impose conditions or offer conditions to, just use the existing driveway. So shared to the apartment. I don't think we can and maybe they turn it into a variance and resubmit the application.
Yeah, I mean, I just, the way it's set up, I just don't know how you get
Back there, yeah.
to, I mean, they really want a new, I mean, it's really remarkable what they're doing. I mean, they're changing the entire footprint of the house.
And they're meeting all the setbacks?
Yeah, I think they're meeting all the setbacks. I just don't think, yeah, I think they're meeting all the setbacks. They have a lot of land there, they're right on the corner.
They are, but their neighbors right there at.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's the problem. They go out of the new driveway and make a right, and their neighbors are making a left. You know, without the stop sign, that's the problem. You're not gonna put a stop sign at the end of your driveway.
No.
Yeah, I'm actually not opposed, although I don't know the geographic situation. I'm not opposed to two driveways, but I think that if they're not allowed to have this extended suite over the garage, I think that's the end of it, right?
Well, they could seek a variance.
They could see the
Mhm.
variance, so it's almost like they applied for the, well.
They'll have to revise their application.
Yeah, so, did we have this conversation with them when we gave them that courtesy call?
I don't think the accessory structure information
Was relayed.
presented. At least it's the first.
That's a conversation I would have to have with the zoning officer first to see if he agrees with my interpretation.
The hearing's tomorrow, right?
Thursday.
Thursday.
So do we
Yeah,
need to
I
make a
just-
decision prior to that conversation? I mean, we won't have another opportunity.
No, you should take a position now.
Okay.
Neil, is it possible to authorize you to go, but subject to, you would still be permitted to have these conversations with their counsel?
Of course.
And so it may be able that we work out a resolution before you go and actually object?
Well, I don't know how that would work because they'd have to refile for a variance.
They'd have to revise their application and their plan. I mean, if you didn't want a second driveway, they'd have to submit a new plan. It shows the deletion of the second driveway. And they'd also have to revise their application to seek a variance.
Well, they can postpone the hearing up until how many hours beforehand without prejudice to the application?
There's actually a waiver in place, so there's no obligation for the township to hold the hearing on Thursday.
Yeah, I just prefer them just to have a conversation with the zoning officer and their counsel, just as a courtesy. I hate to see them running around in circles on this. That's my suggestion.
So if there is a conversation and they decide they still want to move forward, we have to take a position, and today would be the only day that we can take a position. Correct.
That's
So,
right.
so the idea that we take a position with the caveat that we would like you to try and encourage, or at least have a conversation to give them a courtesy so that they could have the option to postpone.
Yeah, but if they don't, is
We
the
need-
board
Then we would
opposed to
We
the
need to take a
application?
position right
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
So,
So I'm going to make a motion to oppose the application of Meadow Creek Circle for safety concerns. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Wait.
I was going to say, do you want to have any additional conversation?
So we're voting just because you said there's a safety issue, not because we think there's that structure is not allowed?
I can take all of the
Oh.
positions, but so I can
Maybe
say,
that's
I can
wrong.
say the motion is around the Meadow Creek Circle, the inaccuracy of their application, that they need a variance as opposed to a special exception, in addition to the safety concern with the driveway.
Okay.
Second. that.
You'll second that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up, we have a public hearing on a proposed ordinance number 529, the Anti-Discrimination and Human Relations Commission. I think I'll turn it over to our solicitor.
It's a public hearing to consider an anti-discrimination ordinance, the purpose of which is really to create a local human relations commission that has the ability to mediate issues that arise, discrimination issues that arise under the ordinance. It's also intended to really fill in the gaps that currently exist in federal and state protections for discrimination. It's become I don't want to say popular, it's become more commonplace that local government has been installing anti-discrimination ordinances and human relations commissions for that very reason. It seems like every day there's a different court decision that affects people's rights generally. And it's important, I think, for the township to take a position that this is a very welcoming municipality, and it takes discrimination issues very seriously. And I don't know why something like this would be objectionable, because discrimination's universally believed to be a bad thing. So it seems to me to be an obvious step in the right direction.
So
Can I ask a question? I'm very much in favor of this, but my one question is, can this get easily overruled at the state level?
Can this get overruled at the state level? In what sense?
In the sense, I'm thinking a similarity maybe to the bag ban, where the state banned the ban on bags. So the state acts sort of capriciously sometimes in their legislation. Would they pass a law that would override any local community township?
That's always a
commissions?
possibility, just like you could have a court decision that says an ordinance like this is invalid.
But the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act like actually enables municipalities
That's
to
true.
do this. So they would have to go sort of overrule their prior act.
Okay, so there,
Taking the power away
there's
from
We're
us.
allowed to do this.
there's a,
Yes.
Yeah, we have
Yes.
express statutory authority to do this. Yeah.
okay, that's what I
And,
needed
and
to
in fact, the
know.
Human Relations Commission and the state one does coordinate with local municipalities as sort of the first step in hearing these complaints, because obviously we're a big state. So I think that's one of the reasons why they encouraged it in the act itself.
Okay, very good. Okay, I'm excited about it.
we open this up to public comment?
What's that?
We open it up to public
Yeah.
comment? So at this time, we will take public comment on the ordinance.
Can I say a few words? Ask a
Sure.
couple questions, please?
Absolutely.
I just have some questions about the text, the substance of the ordinance. A couple definitional questions. What do we mean by perceived race?
Can you refer me to the
Sure, part
section?
16, purpose and declaration of policy. It's actually used a couple times. I don't believe it was defined. And I think the way the ordinance reads, that if it's not defined in this local ordinance, then we assume the definition in the Pennsylvania Human Rights Act, but I just don't know the answer to that.
What section is this again? I apologize.
That's right.
It's
It's at
actually
the
in the-
beginning of
it's a-
paragraph B under purpose and declaration of
I
policy
gotcha.
to secure housing
Well, it's in-
accommodation and
Yep.
commercial
Yeah, it's
property.
in A, B, and C.
And the concern is it's not a defined term?
Is
I
it
just
not,
don't know what it means.
isn't it based on just the actual definitions of the term? The perception of one's race?
Yeah,
I mean,
So who, okay, so
it's subject.
where are we getting that definition
Well,
of?
I think as I read it, I would just apply, I don't think it's vague or ambiguous. It's actual and perceived, both qualify race. So it's somebody's actual race or the perception of somebody's race. The perception would be in a subjective perception by the person perceiving somebody else. I mean, it just seems like it seems clear to me.
it's also used in the definition of sexual orientation and individuals identified or perceived engagement in or desire for. I mean, it seems to me perception is a pretty common term.
Okay, so when we talk about immigration status, does that preclude not hiring somebody based on immigration status that is illegal? Like employers have to have an I-9 signed
This doesn't preempt federal law.
Okay. That was an easy question, answer. And also, this refers to employers employing one or more individuals. Is that compatible or inconsistent or allowable? Because I'm assuming it might be a little more strict than the Pennsylvania Human Rights Act.
Well, the federal law is 16 or more.
Okay,
So the idea was to cover businesses that don't have 16 employees.
I believe the state currently it's four or five employees.
Right.
So we're even, providing more protections for
And that's
even
allowable.
smaller.
Yes.
okay. So let's see, we are in procedures, A7. The Lower Gwinnett Township Human Relations Commission will assist the complainant to immediately dual file their allegation with the PHRC. Does that set us up for any kind of liability in the event that, I don't know what assist means. Does this definitively put the obligation to preserve their rights at the state level squarely with the complainant? If we're assisting, are we potentially liable if we don't properly do this, or somehow don't, the complainant is not successful in securing their claim at the state level?
I don't see where that would create liability. The township customarily assists its residents with various applications, whether it be zoning or land development. I don't think this creates any obligation or liability on the part of the township.
Okay, and that's my similar question, refers a similar question, the next section, B6. If the complaint alleges discrimination on a basis prescribed under federal law, the notice from the township to the complainant shall also provide information of a possible right to file with the federal EEOC. Again, should we not make the correct determination that there is a possible federal claim here, and we don't recommend to the complainant, or is there any kind of, are we open to any kind of liability there?
I don't see it. Again, you're just putting somebody on notice of a potential right. So I don't see any problem with that.
Okay, so, like you said, Neil, discrimination is a bad thing. We don't want discrimination against anybody, any group in our township. Everybody deserves the full protection of the law, to be treated with respect and honorability. No problem there. The problem I have with the local Human Relations Commission is that this local ordinance really does not have any, what they call, teeth to it. It's basically a mediation service. The mediation is not binding and the mediation is not enforceable, as opposed to the concurrent process that's been in place at the state level, the Pennsylvania Human Rights Commission. They have more rigorous investigatory powers. They have professional investigators. They have subpoena power over documents, over witnesses, et cetera, and they also have the ability to render an order that actually provides a remedy to any complainant from Lower Gwinnett Township, which is enforceable by law. So my feeling is that if we're trying to do something for the benefit of our citizens here in Lower Gwinnett Township, I think they are better served by adjudicating their claim through the Pennsylvania Human Rights Commission rather than through a mediation service offered through Lower Gwinnett Township's Human Rights Commission. And that's what we're here for, to do the best thing that we can for our citizens. And I really think they're better served at the state level with these sorts of claims.
The only thing I'll just add, I know we had this discussion before we advertised the ordinance, so I don't want to sort of rehash the points that I made before, but the additional benefit to having this local commission is not just to facilitate mediation, which would be the first step. I mean, if it doesn't go well and there's no binding agreement or settlement reached, they go to the state. So we're not removing that right from our residents. But what we are doing is we're helping them facilitate the mediation, and we're also providing a resource to our local businesses, to our residents. The Human Relations Commission doesn't just mediate, it educates. And I think that's a big role for the commission to offer training programs. The Abington Human Relations Commission right now is hosting a program educating people on discrimination and conversion therapy and sort of the applicable laws that apply there. So every month they do, a series. So I think, it also provides not only an avenue to help remedy these claims before they have to go to the state Human Rights Commission, but it also provides a resource for people who don't know even that they have the right to go to the state Human Relations Commission. We can help them do that. So that's just the only thing that I wanted to add is it's not just meant to adjudicate claims. It's also, or mediate claims, we can't adjudicate claims, but it's also meant to kind of educate and promote, the rights that our community has.
Yeah, well, I don't object to that at all. But again, the flip side of that is because this has no teeth in terms of remedying for a Lower Gwinnett resident potential discrimination. It gives no incentive to business owners, et cetera, to not discriminate if they know that they're not going to have any repercussions.
Well, it might though, because then they don't have to go through the state, right? The state can subpoena them and subpoena records and really make this a very public proceeding. Mediation can be confidential. It can be, it's a great first step in trying to resolve, in my opinion, it's a great first step in trying to resolve claims. And if it doesn't work out, we must refer them to the state. I think that the commission has the obligation under the ordinance to do that. So they can still.
And is there a gap in what the state won't hear? So if it's 5 employees,
Right.
if it's 3 employees, the
Mhm.
state won't address it. So
Mhm.
without this ordinance, the people who work for small businesses can be discriminated against regardless of whether this has teeth or no teeth. I mean, we have to, every 1,000-mile journey starts with a single step. And so this is the first step.
Yep.
And it's a step I believe we should take.
And the state law, I mean, we talked about this last time, while there's a proposed rule, I mean, that's not law. The state does not expressly and in fact refuses to even get the bill out of committee and express protection for these classes of individuals. And, we have residents here that we need to make clear that they're safe and they're protected here. And we don't want them discriminated against, whether they work for small mom and pop shop with only 3 employees or whether they work for one that fortunately falls under Title VII, which is the only clear express protection currently.
Well, the circuit courts have ruled in Title IX and other federal courts have ruled in adopting the Boswick definition. But if the rule is finalized, that does have the force of law. It's through the Pennsylvania Human Rights Commission who has the authority through the Pennsylvania Human Rights Act to promulgate rules and expanding the definition in conformity in alignment with Boswick. It doesn't go through the legislature, but it does have the force of law.
It goes through the legislature, and the legislature, those legislative committees have a chance to object, and they have. They
Well, they're
filed letters.
commenting on the rule right now.
Yeah.
They're having legislators.
Well, the comments
that have-
closed yesterday. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they,
Yeah, so we'll have an answer in June, whether it's a final rule or not, that does have the force of law. But, I'm for limited small government. If we have something in place that works more effectively and really is more of a rigorous adjudication for our citizens, that's the route that I prefer to take.
I'll also point out that the local Human Rights Commission also has the ability and really the obligation to do community outreach, to educate the community on these types of issues. It's a very important part of what they do. They can have workshops, they can have seminars, whatever the case may be. And I think a lot of people would benefit from understanding these types of protections more than perhaps they know now.
Can I ask a question? So how is this going to work? Assuming we pass this, then the next step would be that Lower Gwinnett has to form this commission. And are these pro bono people, or are these people that we're going to be paying the salary to?
It's completely
My understanding,
volunteer.
it's just like any of our committees.
Right.
It's just a
Just like
volunteer.
everything else that we do, the EAC, Parks and Rec, we appoint people, they serve in that capacity. Exactly what we do on our other committees, planning commission, everything else.
These are not township employees.
Okay. Wow. That doesn't sound like it has much teeth, but okay. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Are there any additional comments from supervisors? We're going to open up to public comment. Are there hands raised online? Okay. I can't see the name.
Just go down.
Miss Anderson?
Yes, hi, can you hear me okay?
Ken?
Wonderful. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jenny Anderson and I live in neighboring Upper Dublin. While I'm not a resident of Lower Gwinnett, I am wife to a pastor of a local congregation, and many of the members of that congregation live and work in Lower Gwinnett. In addition, I'm co-chair of the Upper Dublin School District's LGBTQIA+ Equity and Excellence Subcommittee, a group that is working tirelessly to raise the visibility of LGBTQIA+ students in Upper Dublin and to advocate for their needs on a district level. I'm one of many community members in Upper Dublin that asked for and supported a township resolution to oppose the practice of conversion therapy in Upper Dublin. And that resolution was passed in large part due to the work of our own Human Relations Commission. Finally, I have a gay son who works in Lower Gwinnett. I'm here tonight to advocate as an ally for protections for the broader LGBTQIA+ community. But most importantly, I'm here as the mother of children who are proudly a part of that community. It's because of them that I wanted to come to speak in favor of the anti-discrimination ordinance and the formation of an HRC that you are discussing here tonight. I also wanted to thank you for being allies and for doing the hard work of allyship by pursuing this ordinance and the formation of this commission. We must recognize that the work of protecting our most vulnerable citizens belongs to all of us across communities and is not bound by municipal borders or by geography. Fundamentally, we can all agree that everyone should have the right to live where they please, to work where they want, and to be who they are, regardless of their gender identity, their gender expression, or their sexual orientation. While that is a freedom that many of us take for granted, it is a privilege not granted to all. And as we've seen time and again on both the national and the state level, the right of LGBTQIA+ individuals to live, to work, to play, to love, to receive healthcare, and to merely exist free from fear or threat of violence is not guaranteed. In so many states right now, it's even against the law to live out loud and proud in one's own skin. It's illegal to say the word gay. The assaults on identity and existence are relentless and destructive, and unfortunately, they are state sanctioned. Here in Pennsylvania, our own state legislators have failed time and again to pass any comprehensive laws that will codify the right to live free from fear for our LGBTQIA+ friends, families, and neighbors. Because the state has willfully refused to do so, it is up to local municipalities to ensure that there are protections in place. Passing an anti-discrimination ordinance will send a strong signal to the LGBTQIA+ community and to other vulnerable and marginalized communities that Lower Gwinnett is a safe place for all, that this is a community that values all of its members, that hatred's not welcome here, that discrimination will not be tolerated. It will also send a strong signal to our state-level elected officials that the time for Pennsylvania to pass strong and just anti-discrimination laws is now. Tonight, you have an opportunity to do what's right and what is just. You can provide a safe home for our LGBTQIA+ friends and neighbors, and particularly for our LGBTQIA+ youth. Our youth are looking to our government for validation that they are enough, that they are worthy, and that they are loved. It is heartbreaking that they need that validation, but unfortunately they do. To provide protections for them and for all members of the LGBTQIA community gives them the opportunity that they deserve to live their lives authentically and unapologetically. Thank you for considering this proposal tonight, and thank you for the opportunity for community members, even those from outside of your own immediate community, for giving us an opportunity to speak and for our voices to be heard.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Is there another? Okay, Mr. Nagel? Are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And thank you for getting the name correct. My name is Bob Nagel. I'm a resident of Lower Gwinnett Township. I have a few questions and then maybe a comment at the end of my questions. So the solicitor noted or stated that this proposed ordinance was intended to fill in some gaps. I'm wondering if he can tell us what gaps he was referring to.
The gaps I was referring to were the gaps in the federal law. You have to have 16 or more employees. At the state level, it has to be 4 or 5 employees. So that would not cover a number of small businesses that have fewer than that number of employees. I also referenced that the federal and state laws do not cover every form of discrimination.
Thank you. Correct. On the Pennsylvania statute, it applies to employers with 4 or more employees and also public accommodations. The federal statute applies to employers with 15 or more employees. So clearly you're right. Below 4 employees, there is a gap that needs to be filled in, at least in the board's view. What does the board have any data on how many employers there are in the township with 1 to 3 employees?
That might be a question for the township. I don't know if we have a census on our employees.
Okay. Right. Is there, and I just had a question too, in light of the solicitor's comments. Has the board conducted any fact finding? Are we responding to individualized complaints? Has the board conducted any diligence to determine if there is a certain number of employee complaints or other complaints that are sort of falling through these purported gaps? Or is this just, as the solicitor said, who could be against it? We should just do it because it seems like the right thing to do. Are we responding to actual complaints or problems, or is this just, we should do it because it seems like the right thing to do?
I don't know if we have a current system that we would be tracking complaints. I think that would be for the township manager. Do we have a complaint compiling system?
Not for this particular circumstance.
Okay, so no, we don't have a current system where we would be tracking or we could compile that data for you at this time.
Okay. And undoubtedly, if we were to go forward, or if you were to go forward and pass this, the commission might actually have some ability to track that information. With regard to the definition of employer, I think it was noted that it would apply to, quote, employers with 1 or more employee. The supervisors may be aware that the IRS takes the position that households that employ housekeepers, nannies, maids, in some cases babysitters, are considered employers for purposes of the Internal Revenue Code. Is this ordinance intended to apply to such arrangements where a couple or an individual householder might employ a nanny or a maid or a groundskeeper and bring them within the ambit of this ordinance?
No is the answer to that.
Okay, I would suggest that in the definition section where you define employer, if that is the board's intent, it might be worth considering adding language expressly excluding households as employers, because as I read it, it's not clear that they are excluded. You do have a list of excluded persons, so to speak, but I didn't see anything for households. And then the last question, or maybe kind of a comment that I have, pertains to the discussion around the purported lack of teeth in this ordinance. I see that 1610.7 is up right now for a private right of action. And it states, having exhausted the administrative remedies set forth herein, an aggrieved person shall have the right to pursue any rights or causes of action at law or in equity to which such person may be entitled. So that means the aggrieved person can sue the quote employer, which could be a household. And could you please scroll up to the previous section, 1610.6? Yeah, stop right there. Go back to E, please. So it says, remedies. If a complainant brings an action in the common pleas court, the common pleas court shall have the powers to award the remedies that are provided in the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. So the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act does prescribe a panoply of remedies that a court can award in cases brought under that law. Is it the intent? And that's what makes me wonder, does this ordinance, does it have teeth or doesn't it? Right? As I read subsection E, it seems to codify a cause of action for a complainant to bring an action in the Court of Common Pleas against entities which currently are not covered by the state law, but the court shall have the power to award the remedies that are provided by the state law. So I don't know, maybe I'm misreading it, but it seems to me that those might be some pretty sharp teeth after all. So can the
Is there
board
any
shed light
additional-
on that?
I'm sorry?
Can the board shed light on that?
Is there any additional comment, Mr. Nagel?
That was more of a question. I'm asking if that's intended to empower the state courts to award remedies currently available under state law against entities that are only covered by this ordinance.
The common police court has whatever jurisdiction they have and can act in accordance with state law. This ordinance isn't intended to change those rights or change the jurisdiction, nor could we change the jurisdiction of the Court of Common Pleas.
Right, but you are, with this ordinance, purporting to extend non-discriminant obligations to entities that are not currently covered by state or federal law. So, I'm not a judge. I'm not a supervisor either or a solicitor, but I think it is at least open to interpretation whether with subsection E of 1610.6, whether an employer with 1, 2, 3 employees might not be subject to the remedies prescribed by the PHRA. And I'm not even saying if that's good or bad. I'm merely, wondering about whether this ordinance doesn't have, teeth, as we've heard so far.
Do you have any additional comment, Mr. Nagel?
My last comment would be that if it is the board's intent to extend liability under this ordinance to household employers, I think that certainly would be very concerning to me. And if that is an intended consequence of the ordinance, I would like the board, to go forward, making its intentions known on that point.
Okay, thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Chong. Mr. Chong, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I am a resident of Lower Gwinnett Township as well. And when I heard the introduction of this HRC, as you guys described it, I thought it was great. This gives residents, business owners, employees who work here an avenue to bring up or to discuss or to make a claim in regards to any discriminatory acts. I think that it's something that, we would want to bring this up at a local level as opposed to a state level, because, if it's over in Harrisburg, the people in Harrisburg, they don't know what the local climate is. They don't know what it is, how things are in Lower Gwinnett Township. I think that this is something where it will open up dialogue and communication between both parties and just within the community as a whole. And I think communication will lead to resolution or resolving issues. So I think this is something that we need, and I do thank you guys for bringing this up. And I guess also too, we've talked about, does it have teeth? I think mediation does have teeth, because if it didn't, most courts, if not all, have non-binding mediation, non-binding arbitration. And it's non-binding, but a significant amount of those cases do get resolved. So I think that it would be very effective. It gives the community a lot more, and a voice in what's going on within the community. And I think that this is something that it would just benefit the community as a whole. So there's just some comments I wanted to make. I just want to thank you. And I really hope that we do have this Human Relations Commission in the future. So thank you. Really, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. Next, Joyce Pickles.
Good evening to the board and all the attendants. I just want to thank the board for introducing the ordinance, and I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I am a resident of Lower Gwinnett. I'm also a practicing attorney. I have previously represented employers at the PHRC and EEOC levels, as well as in lawsuits. So I have a very good working knowledge of the EEOC statutes, including the ADEAA, the ADA, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, and so forth. So again, I have a pretty good idea of what goes on, of how the statutes operate. And I have heard some people say, well, why is this local ordinance needed if we already have the PHRA, we already have all these other federal statutes protecting people's rights and providing a system through which they can move to investigate those alleged acts of wrongdoing. And I think the answer is that unfortunately, racism, sexism, homophobia, ableism, ageism have become they have been throughout our history so pervasive that they've nearly become an intrinsic part of American society. And these statutes, even representing employers, I know they are so needed because unfortunately, the discrimination has become so intrinsic in our society. They're a necessary part of modern American democracy. And I know that some of the supervisors discussed, well, this ordinance doesn't really have teeth. The PHRA and the EEOC, they have the ability to exact remedies on wrongdoers. Well, having an everyday working knowledge of what happens in those cases, I don't believe that to be true. When an investigation when a complaint is submitted to the PHRC or the EEOC and the PHRC, they investigate, they can look into it, but ultimately, 99% of the time, they are either going to find that there was probable cause to determine that the employer discriminated or not. In maybe 1% of the cases, the EEOC will represent a claimant in court and take the case to court themselves. But most of the time, they determine whether or not there's probable cause to find that they discriminated, and they provide the claimant with a right to sue in either case, whether they find probable cause or not. So the claimant files suit after that time, and that's where they find the remedies, in court. And that is exactly what it is exactly the same process that's set forth in the ordinance here. So I think it's absolutely necessary because you do need these multiple layers of protection for protected classes in our society. And it's mirrored exactly the way it's done on the state and federal levels. So I think it's absolutely perfect. And I congratulate the board and thank the board for putting this ordinance up for a vote.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bickle. Next up, Ricky Cavalli. Can you hear us?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Richard Buttacavoli. I was born and raised in Ambler, so I'm very familiar with Lower Gwinnett, and I pass by Lower Gwinnett all the time when I travel to Ambler, my hometown. I wanted to echo what Ms. Keller had said and Ms. Anderson. I think it is great that there is a local connection for people who feel discriminated against. I mean, come on, you work through the state, you're going to wait a while. I think it's important for anybody who's discriminated against to feel like they're being protected by their municipality. And there is some teeth at the Court of Common Pleas. One of the things I wanted to mention is that I find it quite interesting that Ambler, Lansdale, Upper Gwinnett, Whippane, White Marsh, Upper Dublin, Norristown, Plymouth Township, all your surrounding communities have done this, and they have no problem with it. But so for me as an LGBT man while I'm traveling from Lansdale and I need to pass through Lower Gwinnett, all of a sudden, I'm not protected anymore. So think about that. Also, as founder of the Montgomery County LGBT Business Council, this is good for business. This is good for business for Lower Gwinnett. When you look at all the municipalities that have passed these ordinances, LGBT people feel protected. So they want to come into the municipality and patronize businesses there. It also encourages LGBT entrepreneurs to come in and open up shop in Lower Gwinnett because they know they're protected. In addition, businesses today, when they look to open up new locations, it's one of the things they look at. Does this municipality have a non-discrimination ordinance so our employees are protected? So by doing this, you make everyone feel welcome, and that's what I have to say. By the way, Ambler Yards is located in Lower Gwinnett, I believe. When looking to open up shop for the Montgomery County LGBT Business Council, we decided to look at Ambler Yards, but I noticed they did not have a non-discrimination ordinance. So I met with them and we drafted one together to make sure that while people were on Ambler Yards property, that they are protected. It's interesting that they could walk off the property and no longer feel protected. So I think by passing a non-discrimination ordinance in Lower Gwinnett, you join your sister municipalities in unity and show that everyone is welcome, and it's good for business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cavalli. Deborah Schaefer.
Good evening. This is Deborah Schaefer. I am a Lower Gwinnett resident and also a committee person. And I would simply, to keep it very brief, I'd like to echo everyone's comments the folks who are in favor of this ordinance. I think that everything that Neil, the solicitor, brought up about filling in gaps is extremely important. What Mr. Buttacavoli, I'm sorry if I'm mutilating your name, spoke about how it would be good for business so that people, business owners and customers feel welcome and safe in our community. And I hope I got this right, that Ms. Hunsicker said that we want to do and we need to do the best we can for our community. And I think that is yet another reason that this ordinance should be passed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone additional online. Are there any public comments in the room? You just have to come up and use the microphone so everyone online could hear you.
Can you hear? Now we
Yeah,
go.
mhm.
Mark Schaefer, Lower Gwinnett resident. I want to applaud the board for considering an ordinance like this. I applaud the definitions, the broad ranging extent of the document. I am very happy to have the educational component. I think that's vital. And just like the EAC has no teeth, but the township considers it vital to have an EAC, notably for the educational component. The other comment about definitions, there is no scientific definition of race. It's all a perception. So the question of what is perceived race, it's almost a circular argument that race is only perception. That all being said, I did find some typos,
Okay.
if I may. Sorry.
You can just give those to the township manager
Yeah.
if you'd like, and I'll be happy to correct them.
Very good. They're minor, but they're easily fixed, but I think it'd be worth reviewing. And again, thank you very much for considering this ordinance.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to make any public comment? Seeing none, is there any additional comment from the board? So we have before us proposed ordinance 529 and the establishment of the Anti-Discrimination Ordinance and Human Relations Commission. I would like to make a motion to pass this ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
The motion carries 4-1. Thank you so much. Next up, we have our resolution 2022-13 for the raising of the pride flag for the month of June. June is the celebration of Pride Month. The resolution of Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors would be declaring June 2022 to be the LGBTQ Pride Month and directing staff to fly the rainbow pride flag throughout the month of June 2022 at Veterans Memorial Park. Are there questions from the board?
I don't have a question. I have a query, I guess, or a comment. So a lot of talk about acceptance and welcoming and safe. We all want that. And we are here proposing to single out one community to send a signal to that community. But I assert that there are other groups within our community, namely Jewish people, Asian Pacific Americans, who it is statistically documented suffer from a great more deal of discrimination and hate crimes than the LGBTQ community. Not to say that one hate crime or feeling of disrespect is to be tolerated, but my point is, why are we choosing one group over another group who is much more egregiously treated and another group? And it goes to my point that I do not think this is an inclusive move. I actually think it's exclusive. And in my view, the American flag is the most inclusive flag on the planet. The virtues and the notions that it stands for includes everybody. And I do not think that we need to raise an LGBT pride flag for those aforementioned reasons and just go down that path of basically identity politics.
I think we should raise more flags. Honestly, if there's other groups that have been discriminated against, let's show our support for them. What's the harm in it? There's no harm.
Well, that's not what's before us right now.
I understand.
What we're saying is.
I'm addressing your comments.
Mhm.
I understand what's before us. I'm just addressing your comments about you raised something with Asian Americans and Jewish population. If those are groups that have been discriminated against and the board wants to exercise its right to speak on behalf of Lower Gwinnett, And I think that's a fine thing to do, but to say, let's just put it aside, that just seems wrong to me.
Well, we're not putting it aside. The American flag is flown for LGBT along with Asian Americans and Jewish people and large people and people with purple hair. That's my point. The American flag is an inclusive flag. And this is just kind of a gesture that is really not needed. And I have another point to make. As we all know, we are the Lower Gwinnett Township, and any township in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is the creation of the state. And all the powers and duties and authority that we have come to us through the second-class township code. The second-class township code, Article 15, corporate powers, Section 1510 relates to display of flags, which says that the Board of Supervisors may display the flag of the United States or the Commonwealth, the official POW/MIA flag, or the flag of any county or municipal corporation on any public building or grounds of the township. This particular flag or any other flag other than what's enumerated in our enabling statute is not, it's not permitted. This section here says that we're limited to these 3 or 4 flags.
That's absolutely wrong. What's
Well-
the second word you read? May. It
Yes,
doesn't say
may.
shall.
No, it doesn't say shall.
Then that means that may is permissive. Shall is
right.
mandatory.
Permissive towards these.
We permitted to fly those, but not exclusively those.
Well, Mike, statutory construction, you should know
Yes,
that
exactly.
this is limited
Statutory
to the,
construction. Precisely right.
it's
Kathleen.
limited to the enumerated.
That is false when it uses the word may, not shall. That's completely wrong.
If there was more,
we
it
have
would
our
say,
solicitor right here.
or any other flags as the Board of Supervisors may deem appropriate.
We have our solicitor right here.
Yeah, I'm sure if the legislature had intended to exclude all other types of flags, they would have said, this is shall, this is mandatory, and all other flags are excluded. But that's not the case.
And our neighboring municipalities have been flying the pride flag for a very long time, and the legislature is not, they're not getting sanctioned for
Yeah,
doing
They're
so.
not, but I would assert that they technically don't have the authority to do that either. But I think the legislature is giving a nod to the American flag as being what suffices to send a welcoming, inclusive message to all the residents of any municipality.
I think the members of the communities that have been ostracized or discriminated against might disagree that the American flag is as inclusive as you feel. And I think, again, it's important that we, as a township, let our community know that all are welcome here. And to Mike's point, if there is another cause or organization that's discriminated against and the township wants to acknowledge them expressly as well, like we're proposing to do here for Pride Month, I think that would be a great idea. I don't want people to be discriminated against, and this is not an exclusive move. This is the township acknowledging long-standing discrimination in this country and taking a stand and letting our residents know that they're welcome here and they're celebrated.
Well, I think they know that already, but we're just going to agree to disagree. I view it as an exclusive, not an inclusive move. My case rests.
Are there any additional comments from the board? Are there?
I think we had this discussion last year.
We did.
Things haven't really changed in principle, but I fully support flying this flag, not to be exclusionary to anyone, but rather to be supportive to people who have been widely discriminated against. I think the idea of designating another month for another recognition is a fine one. But the American flag should stand for everyone, but there's no reason we can't give special support to people who have had to struggle with discrimination.
Are there any additional comments from anyone in person or online? I don't know. You want to go first, Mr. Schaefer? Come on, you. I just need you to use the microphone so everyone can hear.
It's not another typo, is it? Mark?
I'd be very upset if that was the case. I think I'm gonna get a reputation here. No, the comment about, whether it's LGBTQ or it's Asian Pacific Americans or Jewish, this would just be the first step in my mind. And I hate to have to bring this up, but of course, with Executive Order 9066, the American flag flew over detention camps, hosting thousands of Japanese during World War II in a very exclusionary step. So that very American flag was used in a very, let's say, unpatriotic way. So to say it's always been all-inclusive, I think is a bit of a misstatement.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. I see a couple hands raised online. Mr. Chung, can you hear me?
Yes, I just have one comment. As an Asian American, Lower Gwinnett resident, I would do nothing but support the raising of the flag, and I would love to see it. I would feel that it's welcoming, and I'm just kind of, I just a little confused on how this is an issue. But yes, I would definitely support it as an Asian American, just to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Buttercavalli. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and thank you for letting me comment again. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Keller for her eloquent comments. I just can't thank you enough as somebody who feels oftentimes discriminated as a gay elder. Again, I just want to echo that your neighbors are all flying flags. And when we come to Lower Gwinnett, we all of a sudden the celebration wants to stop. What's that saying to people about Lower Gwinnett? So I'm not sure where you get your numbers, ma'am, about how other people may be more discriminated against LGBT people. I'd like to see those statistics, but I would like to echo in the LGBT community, we have something that's called intersectionality. So particularly if someone is Black, Asian, or of our brown community, or even disabled, and they're LGBT, they get a double and triple whammy. And let's not forget about the kids who are being bullied and their parents that might not understand what they may be going through because they're not educated yet. A lot of parents realize their kids are different, but they don't know how to come to grips with it. When kids and parents see the pride flags flying, they feel, again, welcomed, and they're not alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buttercavalli. I just wanted to clarify. I think you're referring to Supervisor Janine Martin.
Oh, is that Janine Martin there? Raise your
That is.
hand.
Ms. Keller is in a different municipality.
We always get confused. It's okay, we always get confused.
But it's okay.
I was very confused. You look like Ms. Keller, and I can't read your nameplate. So
No, it's no worries. No worries. No worries at all. Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Yes, thank you so much. Ricky stole a little bit of my thunder. I did want to remind the committee that the work of raising up the LGBTQIA plus community is the work of raising us all up. The work is intersectional, the community is intersectional. And so when we celebrate and we make visible and we protect one marginalized group, we make progress towards celebrating all marginalized groups. And so the flag means something to more than just the LGBTQIA plus community. It means something to a lot of us. And secondly, I I'm obviously thrilled that you're, going to be raising the flag. I did want to encourage you to consider raising a progressive pride flag that also recognizes the work of BIPOC people, Black and Indigenous people of color, in the work of lifting up the LGBTQIA plus community. So rather than just flying the rainbow flag, I would like to encourage you to consider flying a more progressive pride flag that includes those colored stripes and perhaps also the yellow intersex circle, which is the newest progressive flag. And thirdly, you will all be receiving an invitation to join us in Upper Dublin at the high school on May 31st when we raise our flag for the month of June, as it will be raised at all of our schools this year. So we want to encourage you to join your neighbors in flying that pride proudly for the month of June. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that invitation. Greatly appreciate it. Next up, the actual Joyce Keller.
Hello, good evening. I'm Joyce Keller. I am in Whippane Township and I am one of the Board of Supervisors. I was on your board meeting last year advocating for the pride flag to be flown with pride. And Whippane Township flew our flag last year for the very first time. And it was a great source of celebration. We had high school students there, we had parents, we had youngsters there, we had older people there. We were all celebrating the LGBTQ community. And I think that it is very poignant, it's very important to have a visual site that represents the township, but also shows all of our residents that they are included, that they matter. And this, most importantly, is for our students and our children. So I am a full supporter of raising the pride flag as I was last year, and I am glad to see this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keller. I don't see anybody else online. Is there anybody else in person? Any additional comments from the board? Seeing none, moving forward with resolution 2022-13 to raise the flag for Pride Month. The resolution specifically states Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors are declaring June 2022 to be LGBTQ Pride Month and directing staff to fly the pride flag throughout the month of June 2022 at Veterans Memorial Park. I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Motion carries 4-1. Thank you so much. Next up, authorization for staff to prepare and advertise an RFP for IT services for the township. I think our township manager has a little bit of background to give us.
Yes, sorry about that. Unfortunately, our account manager retired at All Covered, who does our IT services. And the company looked over our arrangement with them and told us we were grossly under billed for our services. They have given us a new proposal, which is 100% higher than what we have been paying. So at this time, I just think it's good business to go out for an RFP. We will, of course, allow All Covered to put in a proposal, but I think at this time, I think it's prudent to go out for an RFP for IT services for the township.
Just out of curiosity, are we under contract at all with All Covered?
At this point, it's month to month.
Okay, so our contract expired long ago?
Long ago.
Okay.
So we're month to month, has All Covered given us notice that they're terminating the agreement?
No, they gave us a new rate for which we will be moving towards. And I'm still negotiating with them on a date for that. So, and I did inform them that I'm going to go to the board and ask for an RFP for services. And they were very welcoming to that, saying that you will see that you're getting a great deal right now, so, and have been for years. So
I guess we'll see.
we're going to find out. I think, well, I think we will.
Listen, I think there's a recent demographic.
Is there any additional questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? So what we have before us is the authorization for staff to prepare and advertise an RFP for IT services for the township. I'd like to make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is consideration for proposal to perform squad room renovations in the Lower Gwinnett Police Department. I think we're going to turn it over to Chief Kenny.
Yes, hi, good evening. I think we have a photograph.
Okay.
So downstairs in this squad room, what we're proposing to do, that picture there currently today is 2 rooms. It's divided right down the center. And the reason for that was, when the room was built however many years ago, it's been redesigned a couple of times. The left side of the room currently, not looking at that picture, is really personalized individual spaces. And the right side is where all the work occurs. The right side is our 4 computer stations for all of our records management. We need more room, and we don't need more individualized, personalized room. So the officers are in for a rude awakening to clear their stuff out and take it home. This proposal will redesign the room, we'll open it up, we will remove the wall, we'll put these somewhat cubicle spaces in there. There's 11 workspaces in this layout. 4 of them obviously are actually 6 of them are a little larger than the other 5. So there'll be plenty of room for everybody to actually do the work that's required. We went out, we used CoStars, it's Office Basics, who they are a vendor for Lower Gwinnett. The furniture is Han, I believe it's called, HON, which I'm told is what most municipalities and banks will utilize for their interior furniture as a lifetime warranty. So they've been out a couple times. They've measured the room. They're confident that everything is going to fit right to the inch. There's been 2 price changes since we've first asked about this. And this price that I quoted is, well, it's not to exceed $30,000. We know we're going to have some other issues when our in-house people take the wall down. But this quote is $2,469.22. That may have changed, Fred. I got a quote today.
It's increasing.
24,627. Because we did add 1 piece of furniture when the guy came out yesterday and measured. There was 3 extra feet. There was 42 inches of 42 inches extra space. And what they're going to do is they're going to build a piece of office equipment that'll hold our printer and another, basic workstation. So did you hear that number I just gave you?
24,600. Yep.
Yes, that quote is good till Thursday. So we have budgeted $30,000. We know we're going to have some electrical issues when we remove a wall. Building maintenance in the building has already looked at it. Our codes people have looked at it. It won't be an issue. It's not a supporting wall. The wall was put up to divide a room. So we're just going to take it back down 15 years later.
So I guess the question is, in 15 years, are we putting the wall back up?
Hopefully we'll be demolishing it and moving somewhere.
Not this one.
Yeah. So we have a little bit of leeway. We actually knocked the chairs out of this proposal. I'll be coming back to you next year for newer chairs. I found out the chairs are very, very expensive. So we think we can get this done under $30,000 with this. They have a 4 to 6 week time frame. And we're going to need that also to prepare for it. They do all the installation. That picture is what it will look like when it's done
And this is the best layout.
with
for
with the
you
space we
for
have.
The next X number of years, I mean, barring.
Yes.
the new building and all
This
that.
gives us the ability to do the work that's needed. Where we're going to have to work with Craig and others is trying to find space for, we're going to be removing, storage units basically that hold not everyday gear. That's what we need to find some space for, and we'll figure that out. We're looking at it every day, trying to figure out what we're going to do next. It's house cleaning, and I'm good at that. So that's the proposal. That price I got today is good till Thursday.
So how long will it actually take for them to execute, like once you're ready?
They want 4 to 6 weeks to build it,
To build it?
and then bring it in, but we're
Oh, if they
on,
bring it in.
they're gonna do it all. They're gonna,
Oh, so you don't have to do anything, or you do have to get?
we
it?
have to prepare an empty room
Okay.
is what we need to do. And like I said, we're gonna do that work inside.
I was just wondering, during the time period of them bringing it in or building it, are you guys going to be able to be operational, like functional and operational?
We'll relocate some computers.
Okay.
We have other workstations that we'll be using.
You're
Okay.
saying you'll be police for 4 to 6 years. Danielle was right. She's right.
Does this include the carpet? Looks like there's.
The room is, no, it's not carpeted. What do we have? Like linoleum, or the floors were redone 2 years ago. The floors in the whole downstairs were redone. It's not carpet. We had carpet, we destroyed it. This is pretty rugged stuff that we have down there now.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? Questions from the public? Okay, so we have before us consideration for proposal to perform a squad room renovation in the Lower Gwinnett Police Department for the total amount of $24,627. Is there a motion?
But before, I'm sorry,
Go
was
ahead.
this budgeted for this year?
2022.
So
$30,000 budget.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, you said that, I apologize.
the motion, like there is going to be another, there is going to be some more expenses because there's going to be some electrical work.
So we can't authorize a unknown amount, can we?
Saying not to exceed 30,000, but.
Yeah, you think
I
it's
think,
gonna have to?
well, Rich is telling me we're going to be good.
Okay.
He said you're gonna be good with 30,000, so you wanna, I may revise the motion to authorize the squad room renovations in Lower Gwinnett Police Department not to exceed $30,000. Is there a second? A second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. getting a
Thank you.
squad room. Next up is the authorization to purchase 2 speed signs for Lower Gwinnett Police Department.
I knew who that was before he even turned around. So this is, last year we purchased they're independent speed signs that we can relocate throughout the township by Public Works. They secure them to a pole and they give a digital speed sign to motorists. It's radar.
And they're solar?
They are solar.
Yeah.
And we've never had to remove them to recharge them. The solar panels keep them charged.
Okay.
We've used the 2 that we have a lot. Chad has utilized them in some traffic studies. Their request is by several neighborhoods. They want to see more of these. And if you recall, in previous years, you've asked for a lot. And I really wanted to stagger their use to make sure they were acceptable, to make sure we were getting what we wanted out of them. So we have 2 currently. The proposal is to buy 2 more. And the recurring cost, just so we're all aware, is that line 2. Each one of these units is $1,500 a year to maintain. That's the software updates. That's all the hardware updates. That gives us the cloud storage. That gives us remote access to gather all the numbers. It also is the warranty. If you continue with the $1,500, it's a lifetime warranty. It doesn't end. They will maintain the equipment as long as you keep spending the $1,500. Still a lot of money. We're up to, if we approve this purchase, we'll be at 7,000 recurring cost for the speed detection devices that we have. So this company is also CoStars. This is the price of the unit. And like I said, we've had great success with the two that we have. They are portable. When people see them on their street, they wish they could remain permanent. But we do have to move them around. And the cost for this item for two, all included, is $10,210. And we would have these within a week or two. They're in stock.
Okay.
And was this in the budget or not?
It was.
It was. Okay.
We budgeted 10,500.
And did we budget annually for the?
That's a count. Yep. Yep.
Are there any other questions from the board?
So do you anticipate using these all the time?
Yes.
That is, they're not going to be stored away during the winter.
The two that we have stay out all year, Tessie. The trailer that we have, the bigger trailer, we do put away in the wintertime for snow plowing. The big one has been hit because it actually is on the road.
Okay.
We do put it in safe areas, but the one was demolished about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we do put it away with the road salt and plowing.
I know we're tight on storage space in the public works area, so I'm just wondering if we had space.
These are about as portable as possible as far as space. But like I said, they don't sit inside. They're out all the time.
Okay.
So that's a good point. We don't store these. The township stores them.
So do you have to place them in sunny areas? Like, are there areas in the township that you can't use them?
Well, so
It just holds a charge.
it just holds it. That was one of the concerns, but we ran them on Penland Pike down by Fox Field. We didn't have an issue.
Okay.
Now, whether or not it was, spring or, fall in the winter, we've never had an issue.
Right.
And you've never had any graffiti?
Nope.
Oh,
Nope.
great.
They actually,
That's got low
if-
rent police.
so part of the software, if anybody messes with them, we get an alert. We get an alert. So we get that alert whenever highway moves them. All of the patrol cell phones get an alert.
Very good.
And we'll look at each other and be like, yeah, we're moving them. And it'll say, unit number 3 has sustained a high impact collision, So it's good. They thought of that. So if anybody does come near them, it also is taking your picture.
Oh, boy. No one's touching that.
You clap for that?
Doesn't get much better. This is it for you.
It gets
All
better.
I know.
So the cost for these two items is $10,210 delivered.
Now, is that time frame on that cost or meaning? Okay.
No, I was going to sign off on this tomorrow if we get approval.
Okay. So
This quote is dated today, I believe, or last week, May 5th,
I said, yeah,
May 5th. And I
5th.
talked to her today because she thought the meeting was last night,
Okay.
our rep.
So are there any other questions from the board? Nope. Any public comment?
Yes.
Miss Pagano?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Deborah Schaefer.
I'll keep it really short. As a resident of Penland Pike, yes, please, and thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have before us on the authorization to purchase 2 speed signs for the Lower Gwinnett Police Department in the amount of $10,210. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you. What we have before us now is committee reports, but I do not believe that any committee has met since our last meeting. Am I incorrect in that assumption?
We haven't, I think my meetings are on next week.
All next week? Okay. Okay,
Coming
so we
up.
will table the committee report. Next up is public comment. Is there any comment from anyone in person and or online on anything, any item that was not on the agenda? Ms. Pagano.
Can you hear me? Okay. Kathy Pagano, 401 Brookside. I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything this evening. I just want to thank everyone that spoke in person and online. As a resident of Lower Gwynedd and a member of the LGBTQ plus community and the first ever elected official that is an LGBT in Lower Gwynedd, I really appreciate you putting this ordinance forward. Talking to a lot of the residents when I door knocked, this was something that came up quite a bit. And it weighed on me for a very long time. And this was something that was really important for me and making sure that it got done. So I want to thank you very much for approving the ordinance and approving the pride flag raise, which I'm very excited about again this year. And the third thing is the speed signs. So this has been an amazing night for me. I just want to thank you all for all the work that you do. I really appreciate it. And the LGBTQ plus residents of Lower Gwynedd really appreciate this too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your support, Kathy, for your community.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Any other comments? Not seeing any. Next up is the manager's report.
Next Tuesday, May 17th is primary election day. It'll be one of the polling locations this year, so we'll be ready.
And just to clarify, I know that our newsletter that went out, the hard copy, had the old polling locations. It didn't have the correct changes, and voter services, I think, made some changes in March to approve 1-1 precinct 1-1 to be at the Church of the Messiah and 1-3 to be at Bell Hall at Gwynedd Mercy College. So both previously had been at the East Campus and have subsequently been relocated. I don't know if it's permanent. I know that they were approved for this election. Could we put that up? We did update the website to include that. Okay, because I know that we've got a lot of questions.
Probably want to put out a blast on that too.
We will.
Yeah.
Okay. But the township office, to township is always been 2-1. Okay. Is there another, you have a public comment?
I just wanted to make a suggestion that for people that might not see the blast or get the voting services, I want to put notes on the board of the polling location that we used to be at, for 1-3, as to where to go.
That's my only concern is that it's not our property. I don't know if will we have to ask if we can put that up there on Gwynedd Mercy's East Campus?
Last year they did it through the voting services. They go out there and they.
Oh, they did?
They did.
Okay,
I don't know if they're doing it this year, but I know that.
okay. But I appreciate that comment and suggestion. Okay. Next up is supervisor comments. Tessie?
No comments.
Kathleen?
Just a couple. So I anticipated that I wasn't going to be able to make the executive session this evening and become privy to what the report was going to be from a member of our staff. So I called that staff member yesterday to get an update, you know, a bullet version of what was going to be discussed. And he said to me, well, I've been told not to share that information with anybody until we have our executive session. And that really took me aback that I've been doing this for some time. I've never gotten a denial of information from a staff member at the bequest of a supervisor or two. And just a reminder that, you know, none of us have a monopoly on the information or what's going on in this township. We're all equal as supervisors. And, you know, there's rules of decorum, transparency. We have our ordinance that outlines the relationship between the Board of Supervisors and the manager and staff. And that was just a really improper thing for any supervisor to instruct a staff member to harbor information from a fellow supervisor. Secondly, I read in the B and Z meeting minutes that the strategic plan, our manager is returning to the planning commission with an updated agreement. Well, I knew nothing. Yes, we all, I think, maybe not in a public meeting, but we're all on board that we want a strategic plan. So that becomes a policy decision of who we're going to hire for that. And apparently there have been a number of conversations between some supervisors and the Montgomery County Planning Commission in doing the strategic plan work for us. And from what I understood in those minutes, it's actually crossed the line of actually possibly negotiating or renegotiating an agreement. And that's without the approval of the full board. And it's the full board that is supposed to mandate the policy to our manager or to make such a consulting hire. So again, there's rules for this, for the proper functioning of the government, and so that all the supervisors are apprised of what's going on in our township. And I also strongly urge that, although we don't have to go out on bid, because I'm assuming it would be a professional service, this is a big project. It's going to take us a long time to do. Takes a lot of expertise, and it's going to be very consequential for our township. And I really urge, and as we've done in the past, that we interview the Montgomery County Planning Commission and other private entities. We have our engineer that's capable of doing a strategic plan. There's other consultants out there that can do it as well, because we want the best product that we can get for our constituents, for our residents, for our taxpayers who are paying for it. And really the only way to determine that is if we bring in different outfits, interview them, and make a determination as a board who should do this critical work of our next strategic plan.
Can the other board members address these issues?
I'm not sure. Well, I can only, the last one is the one that's sticking in my mind. I'm not sure what comments you saw in the B and Z minutes.
It was the minute. Yeah, well, it said that.
I mean, I don't know if that was an accurate reflection of the B and Z meeting.
Well,
having-
apparently things are moving forward with the strategic plan without consultation to the entire board.
Yeah, I think
And it
that's a
seems like
misrepresentation. I think the minutes misrepresented what transpired in the B and Z meeting.
Yeah, I actually had the same question that Kathleen did, and thank you for reminding me. I was wondering what the status is, because it was in the minutes, and there was nothing, it just said the strategic plan is moving forward or something like that, something
So
very
all that
brief.
transpired, I think, is that the Montgomery County Planning Commission came out to meet with the manager and the two supervisor members of the B and Z, but were only able to meet with me. So we just had a 3-person meeting. They went over what they offer, what the cost is, and presented that for our consideration, and that was the end of the meeting. So I don't know if, that's not a B and Z meeting. So I'm not sure, Craig,
Well,
if
I
you can
think-
clarify the minutes, because that wasn't a B and Z.
You'll have to look at the minutes a little closer.
Because that didn't happen in the B and Z meeting. That was a separate meeting where the Montgomery County Planning
Craig gave an
Commission.
update that he informed the subcommittee that he met with the county today and will be sending over an updated agreement. Sounds like this is moving forward with one outfit against my very strong suggestion that we've had a number of different consultants for this work.
So like I said, I think that the minutes
unbeknownst to
aren't
the full
accurate.
board.
I think the minutes aren't accurate. There was a meeting between the township manager, the assistant township manager, and me with the Montgomery County Planning Commission. That was it.
Okay, well.
They
that
presented
doesn't-
to us what they offer. They
I would like
presented.
to hear what they have to offer. That's all I'm saying, Danielle. I mean, if we're moving forward with this critical.
We're not,
initiative, we all
I
have
don't
to-
think that we've made a decision to move forward with one entity or another. I
Well,
think
you
what
made a
happened is.
decision to meet with the Montgomery County Planning
Absolutely,
Commission
yes.
without the consultation to the full board.
The B and Z members of well, it's really the administrative staff made this, or the administrative committee that made a decision to meet with the Montgomery County Planning Commission.
Who's the administrative staff?
The chair and the vice chair, me and Mike Tursky.
Well, I'm not so sure if it falls under personnel or administration, but I think a larger policy issue like that transcends a subcommittee, especially when you're talking about updating and agreements. That's my point. And my former point was that staff should never be instructed to withhold information from a supervisor, nor should they.
So I think the very specific nature of the conversation that we had, or we didn't actually get to have it because the first part of our executive session went longer, was a meeting or informational session that all of the board, or I wanted to ensure all of the board heard the information at the same time. And the goal was for all of the board to hear the information at the same time. Unfortunately, the first part of our executive session went way longer than we had anticipated. And we had, I believe, 6 minutes. So we all did not get the information. So my plan was for us to all receive the information in a further session where we can ask questions. He had handouts for us, which he did not provide. And it's not just I don't think there's a Cliff Note version of what transpired because there's multiple layers to what transpired, but it goes back to a decision of the board in 2016 that extended from 2016 to 2018 prior to me being on the board. And because everyone but you was not a member of the Board of Supervisors, I felt that it deserved a detailed explanation, a detailed overview, and he provided that in a document that I believe is 3 to 4 pages long. And it was also,
Yeah, I saw
and it was
that.
also,
I saw
and it was also in the
B&Z,
manager's
And
report.
there were B and Z minutes.
So
but-
the goal
but
was
I
for him
asking for the
to,
information that was going to be shared today at 6 o'clock.
so
And
we
I was told
didn't
I'm not to-
actually have that
I was
meeting.
told that he can't divulge it at the instruction of the fellow
I
supervisor.
asked, I didn't ask him not to divulge it. I asked that he share it with everyone at the same time. I think makes sense for all of the board to get the same information at the same time in an executive session, which is the purpose of executive session, so that we can all hear it, ask questions, and receive the information uniformly. Because otherwise, then we're each individually calling all of our staff at random times of the day or night and trying to get them to piece it out, where we could just utilize the executive session to get it all at once. So it wasn't about information being kept from you, it was just trying to make sure that it was equitably distributed to the entire board.
Okay, just as long as I have access to the information when I ask the staff member, that staff member is not instructed not to answer another supervisor. Okay. That's all I have. That's all I have.
Janine.
I just want to thank everybody for sticking through tonight, and really for the people who came out in support of the anti-discrimination ordinance and the establishment of the HRC. This was something I ran on. This was something that was addressed by many doors and many of our residents and our neighbors. And so I'm really happy to see that we were able to get this done, and to make that statement to our community. So just thank you to everyone who came out, and Representative Hainbridge was here, but she had to leave. So thank her for coming out as well.
I'm proud to be a member of this board tonight. This is why I ran for things exactly like this, standing up for people who sometimes don't have a voice or who have been mistreated through the course of history. It makes me proud that this board could do something like this. So I thank everybody.
I kind of echo some of the comments from my fellow supervisors. I feel proud to be on this board, that we were able to accomplish this for Lower Gwinnett, for the community that I live in. Equity is a huge deal to me. I see myself not only as an ally, but as an accomplice to ensure that everyone is treated fairly and has equitable rights. Me, myself, understanding the intersectionality of discrimination, I understand the importance of standing up to it and advocating for it in all avenues and opportunities. So I thank this board for accomplishing that feat tonight. And I thank all of the members of our community who came out and spoke, whether it be in person or online. I appreciate it not only for the members of our community who identify with the LGBTI community, but also for the youth, and just for the change that it brings to our community. I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Madam Chair, if I could just say
Oh,
one thing, can we
yeah.
just clarify the minutes that we had
had an executive session on personnel issues.
Oh, sorry, yes, we did have an executive session of personnel issues for, I guess, almost an hour. Yeah, well, we started at 5:30, so it was an hour and 25 minutes, because at 6:55, we had a 5 to 6 minute conversation with our fire marshal, Al Conley. Thank you so much.
Did somebody second your motion? If not,
Yes,
I
please.
will.
Somebody can second my motion.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.